Good morning to all of you. At the outset, let me congratulate ICT Academy on finishing their first decade of journey. Moving on to the second decade, or the 2.0, as Mr. Shivkumar said. And also for conducting this seminar on what they call it as a bridge for the 41st time. Enormous amount of service that's been done by ICT Academy. Congratulations to you, Mr. Shivkumar. Congratulations to the rest of the team. Especially, I'd like to call out Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan, who is the chairman of the board. His persistence, and even as Mr. Shivkumar mentioned to us, in recruiting him itself, made that big difference in terms of making this organization as what it is today. So let's join our hands once to congratulate ICT Academy for all the good work they have done. I am no academician to come and speak in front of, I believe, about 200 academicians who are here. I run a engineering services company. Engineering has been my passion, but the connect I have with you is that I'm a consumer of what you produce. I now employ around 6,000 of these graduate engineers in our company. Given the type of attrition that we experience in our industry, probably through our gate, there would have been at least about 30,000 to 40,000 engineers who passed through. We provided them opportunities. As sun started slowly setting on me, in the last 6-7 years, I decided to move on with my life, leaving the business to somebody much younger to me to run. And then one evening I was thinking about it very seriously. Where do I go and spend my time? And that's what people keep saying, that, you know, what's your passion in life? And what did you miss in life? And I thought one thing that I had passion was all about education. And so I did spend the last 5 to 6 years in terms of understanding education in India, especially technical education, and certainly started taking some leadership roles in different forums. You saw a few of them. I continue to serve as the chairman of the board of IIT Hyderabad. I believe I also have the unique distinction of being the chairman of the board for the third time. They typically a 2-year term, 2 terms they give it, but I have the unique distinction of serving for the third time too. But interestingly, I also served on the Skill Development Corporation. So about a year back, or little more than a year it was, one evening, AICT called me and said that Mr. Subramaniam, who's the MHRD secretary, was also with them. They said, look, Mr. Reddy, we wanted you to do a favor for us. I said, what is it like? So they wanted me to develop a perspective plan for technical education for India. And they also said that they were in great urgency and they needed a report ASAP. So we did 2 things, of course. I said, you know, look, developing a long-term perspective plan would be difficult in the time frames we talked about. But I will do one, which will be short term. And the second one is that I will not do any primary research. It will be based on secondary research. I was the chairman of this expert committee. We had 8 members from all industry bodies, whether it is CII, NASSCOM, FICCI, AIMA, you name them, they were all there. But we put together a report, and I thought probably I'll share my first slide is what was the findings that we had from this particular study. India has about approximately 20 lakh seats for undergrad and postgraduate education in India in engineering. This was the number that we had in 2013-14. understandably, the demand was not there. So the number is now down to about 17 lakhs. That's the capacity that we have. But look at what is the enrollment we have in this. It is around 9 lakhs, which means that we created double the capacity as what was required for this nation. You can't find fault with AICT of leadership today. It was all past, it was all history. So there is an enormous amount of capacity that we created. We did very poor planning because 50% of this capacity I'm talking about is concentrated in 5 states of India. The 5 southern states of India. Okay, fine. We just still did 17 lakhs of capacity, 9 lakhs of enrollment. Then comes the next issue. How many of these people are placed in industry? There are no more than 42% who get placement. No time in the history of India have we absorbed more than 5 lakhs of engineering graduates into the industry. So the industry demand, I've got historical data for the last 6 years, we never were capable of absorbing more than 5 lakhs. We created a capacity of 17 lakhs. Poor planning, what was done. But the end result, what we see is the quality of teaching as also the quality finally of the product that comes out of your teaching institutions certainly has several challenges. So therefore, I'm not here to say your institute is working this way. I'm saying this is the overall picture we have. What do we understand from this? Definitely, the quality of teacher is a lot more to be desired. India is one of the few nations, we followed the English system, but English have also changed, but we decided not to change. Is that a MTech or a PhD comes as soon as they graduate, becomes a teacher. What does a PhD mean? You get a PhD degree because of a good research that you've done. Extraordinary research work of recognition and uniqueness gets you a PhD degree. Did it say that you had academic qualifications to teach? It didn't. You have knowledge with you. Knowledge does not mean you have ability to communicate and make people learn from you. So the first and the foremost missing link to us is that we should definitely improve on the teaching skills of our teachers. That's number one. The second one is that if you look at the content that got created and the way in which it is being done also requires a lot more attention. We certainly are teaching something which is probably obsoleted quite some time back. I've seen labs, mechanical engineering labs, still trying to ask people to learn about single cylinder petrol engine. Trust me, if you people are familiar, if some of you are mechanical engineers, you'd find that even the scooters do not have any more single cylinder engines. They're twin cylinder engines in a V-shaped format that's done. So therefore, I think I'm just giving you one example. I can go on with them. The result is that even that so-called knowledge which was supposed to be imparted, is not happening. So, and I think on one side, AICT says we give enough flexibility. On the other side, I hear colleges saying, no, we don't. The truth is somewhere in between. Because we also have a major challenge in resisting change. That is the problem we have. It's nothing bad or good. It's a cultural issue that we have. We resist change. I'm happy in what I'm doing today, so let me do what it is. What's the outcome of it? Who cares? Why am I worried about it? Still, these students will get jobs. So why are we worried? Let the industry take care of the stuff. The other thing that we also found is the pedagogy, the teaching methods haven't gone through any change. You have to realize that the world of education is changing dramatically. There's this very famous ideology called Industry 4.0, but I talk about Education 4.0. What was Education 1.0 was the Gurukul system. Knowledge was with the teacher. So why did I go to school? Why did I go to class? Because I wanted to get that knowledge. Nowhere else it was there. It was just with the teacher. Then came the Education 2.0, where printing presses came by, books got published, so some knowledge was available in libraries. Some knowledge I could buy in book. I could read a book. I could assimilate it, understand it. Still, teacher was important. The Education 3.0 is the one where we found that there could be digital content delivery. Doordarshan has programs. It's a one-way street. They deliver content, but on fixed times they do. And there's no interactivity built into it. Or there's several others of the same type. That probably happened about 5-7 years back or 10 years back in the Western world. But what we experience now is what I call as the Education 4.0, where you can interactively learn online, anytime, anywhere. There's no constraint in terms of learning processes. So pardon me if you're teachers, but I'll still say this. To student at this point of time, the teacher is everywhere. He's available anytime. He's available online. He could chat with me. I could answer my questions. So therefore, my interest in coming to class has come down. So do I tell the student now, no, you can't be online, you can't read anywhere else, you should come and only learn from me? No, not possible. So what you can do is that in these circumstances, how can I do better? We've done some research in this area and we find that today there's no more than about 12 minutes to 13 minutes the attention span of a student in a classroom. And if you, and I will also join you because I also teach, go ahead and verbose for 45 minutes at a stretch. You're not teaching the student, you're teaching the four walls of the room. So that pedagogy, the methodology of teaching has not changed. We've experimented with two other things in IIT. One is called the fractals, where a course is broken up into smaller parts. And we do it, a 3-credit course is done into 1, 2, 3. Let the student get the first one, the basics. He likes the course, he gets into 2, or then he goes into 3. Otherwise, he dumps it, moves forward, still gets the credit for the 1 credit that he has done. Or we now have, very extensively, I use it quite often, all right, is called a flipped class. Classroom, classwork becomes homework. Homework becomes classwork. So these are changes that are happening and none of these have been used so far. And the other one, and I'll stop here and then move on to my next slide, is the issue of industry linkages. I'm sure all of you are aware there's something called a minor project and a major project. In engineering, you're supposed to do a minor project and a major project. There was a flexibility to do apprenticeship. I could be criticized for this, but I'll still say it. The best place where you can get your project reports done is no more than about half a kilometer from here. The luxury of life, it's called Amirpet. If you don't know, I can tell you that. Further, the luxury of life is that, this absolute effort of 6 months can be condensed in 3 hours. At the pleasure of watching a movie too. That guy gives you options, you tick mark the option you require. There is a movie theater next door. Go watch the movie for 3 hours, come back, your project proposal is completely ready for submission. Very colorful, very nice. Doesn't make me feel too good to speak about this. I'm not critical about anybody. I feel sad about it. So the government is, in very honesty, there were some challenges with the apprentice scheme that they had, because from industry perspective, we had about 17 to 19 forms that we filled. As opposed to that, it's now down to 3 forms for us. We are given enough of flexibility. It does not mean that if I take an apprentice, it doesn't necessarily mean I give them permanent employment thereafter. That expectation is not there. So please use the apprenticeship scheme. That's one industry linkage. One of the suggestions that came out of this report was also, please bring industry onto your boards. I wish my good friend Mr. C. Mallaredi was supposed to be here, I believe today, who is the Minister for Youth Affairs. I'm sure you'd have brought a lot of color to the stage this morning. I keep telling him too, saying that, and this is part of the report, please invite 2 of the industrialists to come and sit on your boards. They'll give you some perspectives of what they require. No other interest that they have, no other bias that they would have. So these are some of the things that I think one has to do, but situation does not, but you look at it a little more carefully. This is the status today. What is it looking like as we move forward? World is not any more stagnant. It is dynamically changing. People talk about disruptive technologies. People talk about Industry 4.0. And they also talk about this digital disruption. And certainly, yes. So therefore, what is seeing is that you're seeing that there are different skills which are required, and some skills are completely declining. People say what's very important at this point of time is all about where should I start? Innovation. Are we trying to challenge our students to become more innovative? Are we trying to give them any data points in terms of innovation? Please do that. Allow them to ask questions in the class. Challenge the status quo. Encourage them to start doing projects which are risky. Risky not to go and burn their hands or their feet. Making sure that they think something different out of the way. It may fail still. If he has a learning out of the failure, I'm sure you should rate the project to be extraordinary. I keep saying, for us in the industry at this point of time, it is not a question of win versus loss. I keep saying if every project that I handle, every service offering that I put into marketplace was a winner, then there's no end to it. But no company can do that. But companies which succeed we have majority of them which will be winning. So you have to try out new ideas. Allow that the same thing for your students too. And allow them to work, because the complexity of technologies are so at this point of time, people have to work in teams. Create that environment for people to be in teams. Make sure that they persist with ideas that they have with them. That is the responsibility that we have as students. As teachers. Moving on, the ICT skills are also going through a big change. What is really demand, if you look at, I'm sure you've heard all these buzzwords which are to do with, say, data analytics, AI, machine learning. Currently, there are about 17% of the jobs that require these skills. But we think in just about 5 years, it will literally double itself. 34% of the jobs will require these skills, which are big data, or looking at blockchain specialists. These are the type of skills that will be required. And on the other side, you'll also see some of these jobs that some of the skills that people get in terms of data entry operator, technician, maintenance engineers, those will all start disappearing. All the way from 34% of the jobs today requiring those skills will come down to as low as 24% in 5 years from now. So what we are seeing is there will be more involvement of machine. You have to definitely teach your people, teach your students that humans and machines will work hand in hand with each other. They will supplement each other. There's no denying the machine is being created by a human being, but it might not be the same human being, somebody else created it, but you have the onus and responsibility of working with the machine. Working with the machine to make sure that you are much more productive. Here is what I have as my first recommendation. I'm sure I've mentioned a few of them, but here are they in one set. One is that we need to revive technical education if we want to get good skills and associated productivity. So if we want to augment skills and accelerate growth, which is the theme of the conference today, we need to revisit our technical education. The first and the foremost is we need to find the faculty more motivated. I'm very seriously working on this part of it, saying that faculty has to be incentivized and also penalized. Seriously, I made a big pitch with the Minister of HRD in the recent past. It's not just incentivizing won't work, penalize them too if they don't work. But otherwise, what's the motivation for people? And teachers have to definitely start working on trying to relook at how they teach. Do they really have that passion to teach? What motivates them to teach? It's a profession which is, to me, as good as a doctor saves lives of people. Whereas you create engineers who build future for this world. You are as good, if not superior in my eyes, than a doctor. You educate, you provide knowledge, you provide skills to people who build new products, new services, which makes human beings a lot more comfortable. That's what we have seen through these industrial revolutions. That's what you're seeing from the industry interface. What we have seen is that if you go back into history of mankind for 6,000 years, and thereafter, if you start plotting Human Development Index as it's called, versus time, Human Development Index and time remain flat with each other all along till 200 years back. It starts taking a turn. That's when the first industrial revolution came in. With the fourth industrial revolution, that curve goes exponential into the sky. What does it mean? The Human Development Index is reflecting on the comforts to human beings, the GDP of individuals. All of them are increasing, primarily because of technology. So the result is that you have to definitely ensure this technology reaches the student. So make sure that the pedagogy, the way in which you teach, changes. The other important one that I like to call out is this Deep Industry Institute Connect. That I think is extremely important, because if today, right now, what I feel is we're not completely aligned with each other. I'm sure some of you will challenge me on this and say, Mr. Reddy, you're a very short-term guy because you come from the industry. You want a solution to come like this. We are academicians. We think long-term. We do research. I have no problem at all. But make sure that your research gets useful. How many citations does research get is what I ask for. Because I've now gone beyond saying that, what international journal that do I get publish my work? But I want to see how many times people have cited your work. So therefore, how much have you monetized your work? We're doing some research on CSR right now. As amount of money spent to amount of return that we get, there should be some way of measuring it. Monetization of work becomes very important. So therefore, industry will bring a lot of value to you. Connect to the industry. The second suggestion that I have is that this technology has become all pervasive. It's not in one area that you think in the past. Automobile industry was all about mechanical engineering. What we taught them was the maximum electrical, there was a battery, and the battery's function to me was about 3 or 4-fold. One was, it was doing the starter motor. That's one. The second one was, it was doing the lighting and the brake lights. And by the time I started driving for the first time, I also had this signal for turning to left or right. Actually, my father used to have a car called Landmaster. That was the pre-incarnation of the Ambassador car, where there is a stick coming out to the left or right, whichever way you turn. But that was an electrical device. But whereas now you look at a car, it has 80% of electronics, electrical, and software. 20% of it is mechanical device. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this car called the Tesla, Elon Musk's car. The first time I went and said, oh, this is an electrical car. So I said, must be having huge batteries. I opened the bonnet. I didn't find a battery. I opened the hood. I didn't find a battery. Where was the battery? He energized the floor plate of the car into a battery now. So there's no battery space. The trunk is empty, the hood is empty. And amount of automation that goes in. I've been in their factory, I've met with Elon Musk. Amazing, that's the change that's coming in. So the result is, what we need to do from technical education perspective is, this has become all pervasive. Look at small interventions. How many of you have read today's Hindu newspaper? Please put up your hand. One. Somewhat disappointing. So how many have you read about Michael Kremer in Hindu newspaper today? How many of you have read about Michael Kremer in today's Hindu newspaper? Today's, I'll take Hindu out, they're also sponsors, I know, but I'll say in today's newspaper. Who is Michael Kremer? Sorry? Thank you. He's a Nobel Prize winner. Thank you very much, sir. Why did he win Nobel Prize? It's called development economics, along with Abhijit Banerjee and his, I don't get her name, but his wife. There were three of them who went on development economics. So there's a piece, please, if you did not read, go back and read it. One of the things that Michael Kremer did is that he showed intervention of technology to a farmer in India. 2,500 was the sample base that he took in the state of Gujarat. And what is the technology intervention is primarily creating a call center for the poor farmer to call you irrespective of where he was with a low-cost phone. Questions were, do I seed today? Will it rain for me today? The end result is, it's documented at this point of time that every farmer that he touched had an increase of 7,000 rupees of income every year. His initiative was called PAD, Precision Agriculture Development. It's a NGO. So look at a small intervention. I'm sure call centers, dime a dozen, right? But that technology applied to agriculture at this point of time. Or a more serious one that I get involved in, what is called as the same verb we can use verbology of different nature, is precision agriculture. We use drones at this point of time. It's a service offering from my company. We work with agriculture or pesticide companies or fertilizer companies in terms of flying drones on crops, on empty land. First time we thought the whole POC or the proof of concept was to find out if we can save on amount of pesticide being used. And I'll be very honest with you, gentlemen and ladies, I was surprised myself. From the drone imagery that was coming out, our people could extract 54 different characteristics of the land or the crop. And then, you can do number of interventions, but look at it. What's the technology involved in this? There is drone, it's a mechanical flying object, aerodynamics, computational fluid dynamics, rotors, you name them. Thereafter, there's imagery. there's camera. Thereafter, there's AI. Because AI is interpreting what exactly is the pest on that particular leaf. Thereafter, it also is interpreting which is a pesticide that has to go by. This is chemistry, chemical engineering. And then finally, there's yet another drone which has got the pesticide on it, which is going and spraying there. Look at the intersection of number of technologies we have at this point of time. So therefore, and this is the future. So make sure that you teach more amount of digital. I know I'm going far beyond my brief, but I'll finish off in a minute. My final, but one slide, I believe. My third recommendation. Somehow in this nation, we have a very wrong impression that in universities and colleges, we teach and impart knowledge. Knowledge is what is imparted to them. But where does he get the skill? We don't have an answer. But for learning skills, there are ITIs and polytechnics. If you say skills, immediately people say, oh, you're talking of electricians, fitters, mechanics, and so on and so forth. No. Skills are what makes people job ready. So it has to be a good balance between knowledge and skill. You can't just have knowledge and say, industry, take these guys and do the rest of the stuff with them. We can't, because we don't have the luxury of time. I showed you how technology is changing. So the result is that you have to focus on experiential learning. That's what we think is the key future. People have to experience it. What did I do? The minimum, I still remember, and I can therefore has helped me. I wish I was taught a lot more. I'm sure not many people could guess how many years back I got my engineering degree. Not to make you curious, 48 years since I got my engineering degree. And still, I remember carpentry. I can teach a carpenter how he can probably do a better job than what he does. I learned a course called electrical circuits, I think it was called, basically electrician. So I'm sure some of you know this two-way switch. You switch at the bottom of the staircase on a light. You go to the first floor, you can off the light. It's a tricky circuitry that you have to put. I learned that. I still remember that. And you have labs and so on and so forth, but that's not end of it, all of it. Today, I also sit in the board of University of Michigan. What are we doing there is moving very hard into this area called experiential learning. So make sure that people get knowledge along with skills and they experience what they do. And finally, my last slide is, a lot of people talk about entrepreneurship is very important. Through entrepreneurship, we'll create jobs. Very good. Very important. I also speak about it fairly often because the need for jobs is very high. The numbers say that we need to create 1 million jobs a month. In the age group of 15 to 21, 1 million people come into streets of India every month. 10 million jobs a year. 100 million jobs in the next 10 years. Entrepreneurship is one way. But to me, more importantly, if you can skill people well, get them knowledge plus skill, will create an environment which could be a lot more productive and efficient. So therefore, if we go back to your theme, we have to augment the skills. And as a result of that, what we will see is we'll accelerate growth for this nation. Thank you very much again for giving me this opportunity, and good luck with you for all of you for the rest of the conference today. Thank you.